Hi, this is Marlene, and I want to welcome you to another episode of Stories of the Supernatural. Whether you're watching a video or listening to a podcast, please like and subscribe to us so that you can get notification of when a new show is released. Links to videos or MP3 files can be found on MiamiGhostChronicles.com. Go to MarlenePardo.com for information on new book releases. I narrate several podcast series that can be found on major podcast platforms and can also be listened to via Alexa, Sonos, and other home systems. Look for Supernatural Storytime for scary storytelling, Nightshade Diary for classic horror and adventure stories, Stories of the Supernatural for interviews with different guests on the show. If you want to get noteworthy news about the paranormal world, true crime, conspiracy stories, and anything that is just plain weird, you can visit Strange Than Fiction Stories tab at MiamiGhostChronicles.com or find us on Blogspot. I want to thank you for being part of my audience, and I think you are all wonderful. Hi, everybody. This is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, Stories of the Supernatural. How's everybody doing? Good, I hope. Back this week with a new guest, somebody that hasn't been on Stories of the Supernatural before. And I'm just going to bypass the chicken excuses because I know there's people saying, so where's the film about the little chicks? I haven't gotten around to it because I'm doing something with a property on the other side of my property, some business work there that, you know, when things got to be done yesterday because all of a sudden things, step up and you're like, huh? So that left no time for my little chicks so that I could put that video in here, insert it in here. But I promise, my best promise, I will try to. They're nice. They're growing. But they're still chicks. They're beautiful. And everybody, I haven't lost any chickens. Everybody's fine. Yeah. And we had a problem a couple of weeks ago where we had a neighbor's dog that for some reason kept jumping over their fence and jumping my fence and coming into the yard. And I had two pretty big scares because I know I'm going to say this and I know a lot of people are going to go, oh, that's a bad reputation, but it's a pit bull. As a matter of fact, a beautiful pit bull, one of those blue-gray ones. And let me tell you something. That's the kind of dog you don't want to find out how mean he is. And he's, for some reason, he'd been there for months and all of a sudden he decided to pay a visit to my yard twice. And I've got my dogs and I was thinking of my chickens and it's like, oh, I don't have enough to do. Now I've got to worry about my neighbor's dog romping around the property. Yay. But anyway, guys, that's a little sliver of what's been going on with Marlene and I. Like I said, I promise I'll get the information about the chicks and the chickens and all the ones that I've got, in therapy and chicken therapy. But let's get on to the good part. And the good part has to do, number one, well, before we get to the good part, sorry, that was let me talk to you about my sponsor. My sponsor is Primary Notary Services. Now, this are services that they provide in the state of Florida. They're full notary services at your convenience, when you need it, where you need it. And the best thing is they travel to your location at a time that is suitable for you. And they're fast, friendly, reliable, and above all professional. And they keep your privacy in mind. They can assist you with immigration forms, virtual assistance services, title processing. They can officiate at your wedding. All their notaries are background checked, certified, bonded, and insured. And they're available 7 days a week, after hours, weekends, and holidays. But the best thing that they can do is that they have what's called remote online notary services, which means that if you need some document notarized, okay, they can do it online. No visit required. So to reach them, call toll-free 844-423-7773, 844-423-7773. And if you go to primarynotary.net, you can visit them there, or you can also email hello@primarynotary.net. Now, let's get on to the real good stuff again. And like I said before, this is a guest that hasn't been here on Stories of the Supernatural before. And this is a gentleman. His name is Keith Age. He's been called the legendary rock and roll ghost hunter. mostly because he has over 30 years of experience in paranormal research and because he's been a professional musician even longer. And the name was bestowed on him by Jason Halls of Taps. He's also the founder and president of the Louisville Ghost Hunters Society, formed in 1996 and has over 4,000 members worldwide. He's especially known for his extensive investigations of the Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, where thousands of people died during a tuberculosis epidemic that swept the area in the 1920s. You might have even heard Keith on, he's appeared on hundreds of radio stations internationally, speaking at numerous conventions. He's the host and associate producer of the Booth Brothers Spooked TV, which is a highly acclaimed documentary spook series, which includes Spooked, Ghosts of Waverly Hills Sanatorium, Children of the Graves, The Possessed, The Haunted Boy, The Secret Diary of the Exorcist Case, Soul Catcher, Trail of Fears, Children of the Grave, number 2, The Unseen. I mean, there's a lot to talk to Keith about. I'm telling you right now. It's like the questions are going. Anyway, in 1996, he had at the age of 16, he had a dramatic encounter with a ghost, but it just wasn't any encounter. So I'm going to let him tell that story. But help me welcome him. How are you doing, Keith?
I'm doing good. I never made the connection. You were actually in Miami. I'm a Fort Lauderdale boy.
Well, you know what? I was in Miami till about 7 months ago. And I moved up to a little bit north of Ocala, up in I live in a little town that's got less than 5,000 people. So,
cool.
Which I'm fine with. It's, slower. And I got a property and where I can keep all my chickens and my animals and all that stuff. And
yeah, I was going to ask you, how are you keeping chickens in the city of Miami?
You know what? Before this, I used to live out in Homestead, which is like the agricultural area for
just outside of Fort Lauderdale.
Right. And out there because I had like 3 acres out there, but it was getting too much traffic, too much everything. And you know what? Up here it's quieter. We got a big property where we could keep chickens and a lot of roosters, and nobody cares because you'd be surprised. A lot of places, cities and counties now, they have regulations about whether you can keep chickens, whether you can keep roosters, how many. Surprising. So yeah, I'm very happy up here. So as a matter of fact, every once in a while people will say, hey, I hear your roosters crowing, because as this towards twilight is when they start doing their crowing thing. So yeah, they'll come out every once in a while in the background.
I know the feeling. I'm getting ready to move to a house where there's chickens all around. So
really?
Sure I'll get to experience firsthand, I guess.
Let me tell you something. Needless to say, I love chickens. I call myself a chickenista.
Okay.
And I have about, right now, I want to maybe 40 to 50 in that range.
Jeez, that's a lot of chickens.
Yep. I lost a few out here to some birds of prey, because out here there's bald eagles, there's ospreys, there's sparrowhawk, you name it. Out here there's a lot of just in the air it's like chickens. It's like, yay.
Yeah, not to mention the stuff that slithers on the ground.
Oh, around here, believe it or not, I know that they have problems with, you got to be careful with some rattlers like copperheads, but they usually sneak under like pieces of wood and debris.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, those birds of prey at night, the owls, which are huge, they decimated also a bunch of my chickens at night. They kind of keep all of that clean. I mean,
cool.
It's a little bit darker, you hear those they're huge owls. You hear them going, whoo, 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 and you're like, there they come.
I'm familiar.
Huge. Okay, man, they're like nobody. It's not like a little owl, man. Those things are, unfortunately,
those are Mothman size.
Let me tell you something. I found a few decapitated chickens in my yard because of that. Yeah, yeah. I went through what do they call it? Trauma fire.
Yeah, trauma fire.
Yeah, but we like a couple of months ago we had a feral hog that got hit by something, clipped it. And I had somebody doing some work for me. He goes, hey, by the way, there's a dead, one of those big javali hogs, the ones. He goes, it's up by your property on the road. Oh, really? And I said, well, I don't know how to dress. He goes, well, I got some boys that come over here. I said, okay. And I have a big pole back there where they used to have one of those tire swings.
Right.
And they hooked it up on its hind legs and they skinned it. Yep, that was the end of that.
They decimated it in minutes.
Yeah, they said, they even told me, look, we're not going to open up the belly because sometimes, even though it got hit on the snout, sometimes the intestines will rupture. So,
Right.
and I know there's people going, oh, Marlene, and and they just took the hindquarters. I said, guys, keep it, whatever you want. And I said, but the rest of me says, don't worry, there's a lake out there where some gator is going to be happy because we'll just throw it there and they'll. It was,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, this is the kind of place that, believe it or not, some people go, man, I love it. I love it. So yeah, we have a fence so that we don't get any unusual, but you got coyotes and things like that. And I love it. I love it. It's unusual, but yeah, no homeowners association. How's that?
Yeah, there you go. Up by Ocala. That's a good area up there.
Yeah, Ocala. I'm a little bit north of Ocala. A little bit north of Ocala because Ocala's gotten really populated. Everybody knows about Ocala. There was a lot of hunting for many years, and they had the Ocala National Forest. It's become pretty populated. I'm north of Ocala.
Well, you're getting more into dense forestry as you go north.
Yes,
so.
I am. Yeah. Out here it is. Yeah. This is the kind of place that you go outside. There's no city lighting. So unless you provide your own lighting, talk about dark. Great for stargazing, though.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So anyway, I want you to tell my audience, because I read in the bio, and you made about that experience you had it when you were 16, which, by the way, I loved it that you said, what was it? You were into the music and the girl, but following one and then the other got you into that fix. What happened?
Yep. Well, like I said, you're talking the mid to late 70s. So I've been doing this over 40 years.
Okay.
And the bio's just a little bit outdated. Sorry about that.
That's fine.
Yeah, and my world was music. The 70s was great for music, and by the time I was 16, I was on the road touring all over the world.
Wow.
With the band. And when I came back from touring, came home, met this young lady, and she wouldn't let me meet her mom and dad, which, I didn't think too much about it because I just figured, well, 70s, I had the rock and roll look, I had hair down past my butt and the beard and the leather. And, I just figured, well, she's just shamed, scared to take me home and show off,
Yeah.
So finally, her parents invited me over there on her 17th birthday, and I got to go in. It's just a little ranch house, 3-bedroom house, nothing special about it. And she and I sat on this couch, and I'm asking her, your parents are really great. Why didn't you want me coming over? And she's like, because we have a ghost in the house, and he doesn't like mine or my sister's boyfriends. And I was
Are you kidding?
Yeah, no. I was like, okay, yes, you're right. So where we were sitting on this couch, you could see down the hallway to the master bedroom, and there was a mirror, and you could see our reflection. Something kept walking in front of this mirror, breaking that reflection. So I'd go down and look, there's nobody down there. So I'm being young, dumb, and stupid, called this thing out for the rest of the evening. And as I went to kiss her goodnight inside the living room, I felt something grab hold of my left arm, and power. It was really powerful. And first thing I thought was, oh, hell, Dad's got me here. But he's sitting over on a lazy boy. And I'm like, next thing I know, I'm flying backwards through the air. I go through the front door, through the screen door, and I land about 6 feet out in the front yard. And I remember trying to catch my breath and what the heck happened? Am I okay? And then I thought, that was so effing cool. Do it again. You
didn't wig out? You didn't be like...
No. They did. I didn't. And like I tell people go, aren't you scared of this stuff? I was like, I'm a musician from the 70s. I ain't gonna brain cells.
It's hard to scare me.
Yeah.
So I take it what that
startle me, but you can't scare me. Yeah. I'm sorry.
I
Go
guess what
ahead.
it hadn't been violent with you like it had been with other guys. Were you like the one that got the worst treatment then?
Pretty much. And even to this day, they can't keep nobody in that house. And
Oh, you're kidding! You followed it?
oh yeah, I mean that was my introduction to the paranormal world. And I kind
Wow.
of, me and the girl broke up. I kind of
Okay.
became like the oldest son, adopted son to the family.
Okay.
And they moved out of there about 25 years ago and renting it, selling it. They sold it 4 times in 1 year because people say, "No, there's just something here." And to this day, they can't keep nobody in there. You drive by it and half time it's vacant.
And how long did they live there? All the time they lived there, they had that experience or
Yeah,
something happening?
yeah, they were the second people to live in that house.
Oh,
Uh, is actually the subdivision builder built that house first in the neighborhood for his wife. She ended up dying of cancer in the house, and he finished the
oh,
rest of the neighborhood, and then he blew his brains out in the house.
what?
Yeah, so that's who we always kind of figured that's who it was because there was never any other structure on that land, period. Built
Yeah, that is
in
pretty.
It was built in the
And
late 50s, and there's no record of anything there. It was all just wooded land.
let me ask you, nobody ever knew, like, you know how somebody says, yeah, this guy, when he was alive, he was a real SOB, or yeah, that sounds like him. Nobody ever said, if it is this guy that used to live here, that sounds like something he'd do.
Well, what we could find out about him from his family that was left was
Mm-hmm.
he loved his wife so much. He put the money down to build a subdivision, but he made sure she had the first house, and
Okay.
and then he was going to build a bigger house, and sell that one as part of the tract land. And then she ended up getting sick, and he loved her more than anything and couldn't take it. He finished up the houses because he was contracted to do it, but his family said no. He was a super nice guy, and you know, never any problems.
Wow. That's so interesting. So even after all these years, nobody has been able to. So I take it that he's still. But let me tell you something, Keith. The reason why I'm saying and I asked you that is paranormal wise, for an entity to have that much force,
It's
that
a lot of
takes a
power. Yeah.
lot of energy.
Oh
A
yeah.
lot.
And granted, I'm not as big then as I am now. We're talking 40 years
Yeah,
later.
but it doesn't
Uh,
matter.
yeah, it still takes a lot of power to put a 200-pound person through a door, through a screen, about 8 feet further. So yeah.
Right. It's like a lot of, yeah, a lot of emotion, a lot. That's why I was asking. I wonder what kind of person he was like. Was he, for all you know, maybe he was the jealous type of no, he was a nice jealous guy. But I'm thinking something like that. Yeah, that
No,
would,
and they had one son in the family, and it never did anything to him at all.
no, the thing was the boyfriend angle then.
Yeah, it was all the sisters, the daughters.
That
And
is
there was
so
there was
interesting.
three of them. There was
So
three
he
of
had
them.
his hands full. So
Yeah.
this obviously, and let me tell you something, not many people are lucky enough to get an introduction like that into the paranormal, by the way. Some people, yeah, they have their, things like when they're a child, they'll see something or they'll hear something, but like that. So what happened? This hooked you then?
Oh, definitely. And and if you said you were hunting ghosts back then in the '70s,
Yes.
you had, like I've said, you had the guys with the little white coats and the big nets running behind you. And
It's really funny because, and I love talking to somebody who's been doing this work for quite a long time. I say, once upon a time, you actually had to pay to develop film. Guess it wasn't all
oh
digital.
Lord, yeah. You take it to the photo mat, and it's 12.50 a pop. Man,
Yeah.
that was a lot of money back then.
Yeah. And all
And
you would sometimes would get a whole bunch of nothing.
yeah, and you still do.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, just thank God a SIM card costs a whole lot less. and you
Yeah, of
can
course.
reuse it over and over again. Yeah, but
Yeah, I mean, it's
but then
time
again,
consuming, but yeah.
yeah, but
It,
then when the digital age came in, I didn't cross over automatically like a lot of people did because
mm-hmm.
cameras were only 5 and 6 megapixels, compared to
Right.
what they are now, and the cameras filled in what it didn't understand,
Yeah.
and they just were not trustworthy. Now it's at the point where it's pretty much what you see is what you get.
Well, which the flip side of that is, and a lot of people know, is that unfortunately also that leads to a lot of tampering with
Oh yeah,
evidence and photographs and film and you name it. Um,
yeah.
so here you are, you're young, you have this experience. So what happened? As you were doing your music thing, did you ever have any more encounters like that?
Not so much with the music. Now, some of the places, you gotta remember, these weren't bars we played. These were coliseums and places
Mm-hmm.
all over the road. And when we were in England and Germany, there were a couple places that were really cool. But you didn't have time to go explore, nothing like that. It's pretty much
Okay.
music, party, get on the bus, go.
But it sounds to me like you might be something like a magnet. Is that
Well,
accurate or no?
I have been called that. Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
I've had things thrown at me and struck me, and people go, well, aren't you psychic? And I'm like, no, I don't have a psychic on my body. If I was psychic, I would have ducked. You know,
yeah, it's like yeah. That's
I don't like stitches no more than the next guy.
so. You at what point did you decide to go into actually paranormal research or investigations or trying to put a group together? How did that come about?
In the early '90s, local college around here asked me to come in and speak, and which I did because I'd already been in the newspaper and stuff a couple times, and I did, and then they said, would you like to do some more? And I was like, sure. And then as more and more people got involved in it, I said, well, why don't we just start a little group up here? And because I
Okay.
can't be everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then
And
plus
what
I
were you
was
getting?
so heavily into music.
Were you getting what was it? I imagine maybe after presentation, what did you do? Did you start getting people coming and saying, "Hey, I got something going on at my
That or
place"?
hey, my cousins, brothers, step aunt, you know, everybody's got a story.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, and that we talked about it briefly, that back in the 90s, it was people wanted to keep that a little bit more under wraps as far as
Oh yeah,
actually
they didn't
asking
want to
for
be called
help.
crazy. Yeah, they didn't want to be called crazy at all. And that was the double-edged sword.
So you would go in there, and what happened as far as what were you doing? Were you doing like historic landmarks, or did you start working with people like at home and their homes?
Well, you got to remember in the '90s, the historic
Hmm.
landmarks didn't want you in there at all. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. If you did it, you had to do it like not that you were doing it, but
yeah. But yeah, people would, hey, look, I got something weird going on in the house. Can you come check it out?
hmm.
Also, back then there was a law that if you were selling your house or something like
Oh
that,
yes,
and you thought it was haunted, you had to report it. So then the
yes.
real estate agencies would hire me to go in and check it out.
Really?
Yeah,
How interesting. And what did
they don't
let me?
they don't do that no more.
I bet. Well, and a lot of people don't realize that every state has different rules. But yeah,
Uh-huh.
that there are certain things where they have to disclose. Uh, the real estate sale. If there's a chance that some of them, I believe, even have that even if there was like a murder or anything
Yeah,
like that, they also have to disclose it as well.
yeah.
So
That's
what would they do? They'd come to you and say, "Hey, I want you to go in there and tell me if there's anything going on supernatural." Is that what they'd ask?
Yeah, and I tell them, look, this isn't a thing of just going in there one night seeing what's going on. It's
Right.
we go in there several times and see what we can find. And
Okay.
just because we don't find nothing doesn't mean it's not haunted.
Of
Just means
course
it
not.
didn't happen while we were there.
Timing's not right for some reason.
Yeah.
It's not an on-demand thing. Uh, so that's an interesting. I hadn't heard of that one of the real estate. So let me ask you, if you came back to one of these real estate agents and you said, "Yeah, I don't know exactly, but I think there's something going on." What were
Yeah,
they?
there were a couple times that did happen, and they
Okay.
had to put it in the disclosure,
Oh.
that it's possibly haunted.
So let me ask you, what is it? They didn't trust their. I imagine what these are the sellers, real estate agent. What they didn't trust their own client to like fess up and say, "Yeah, I've got a ghost in the house."
Yeah, because if you do the research,
Mm-hmm.
there's legal precedents where someone sued the former owner because they didn't tell them they thought it was haunted in New
Yes.
York, and
Yes.
they won the case, and that's
Yes.
what got all started. That
Yep.
was back in the 30s.
Yep. Yep. There was over here in Miami. There was a building. It housed a council. This was like it was built like in the mid 1920s, and
Was
you
it
know,
built by Flagler?
no, it wasn't a Flagler. It wasn't built by Flagler. It's in what's Little Haiti nowadays. But back then it was like
Okay.
Northwest Miami. But this was like in the mid 1920s. They had a council. It was very nice, nice architecture, beautiful, whatever. But anyway, as the time progressed, town changes over, goes through incarnations. Bottom line, I want to say in the 90s,
Mhm.
it went up for auction and a postal worker won it for like nothing. His plans were to make a restaurant. For some reason, he hadn't done his research properly. And after the fact, he found out that it had this reputation as being haunted. And he was able to get out from the bid, having the winning bid on the house.
Yeah.
Once he became aware that it came out that it had the reputation for being haunted. So, yeah, things like that. People don't think that happens in the real world. And I imagine also nowadays there's even homeowners that will think twice about asking a paranormal team to come and look because they're thinking, what if I decide to sell this place and it comes up, and otherwise I can just act stupid. Or, and I don't know if you've run across this, where it's like after a while you tell people, and you could run across this with when you start talking to people and ask them about the history of any weird stuff, and you realize it's not the house, it's you, because just about every place they
Yeah.
go,
Yeah.
they it's like, when you ask somebody, well, what have been your experiences? And then they're going through this list of, and it's just about every place they've been at. And then you think, this isn't the place. There's something here, but your biggest problem is there's something that's coming with you everywhere you go.
Yeah. It's like people say, don't you afraid you're going to bring something home with you? I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
only when I've been drinking.
And then it's like, okay. So let me, and now, you know what? And I used to smudge down my car because whenever, and people, sometimes some of my other members, because sometimes we would all arrive in different vehicles and they'd look at me and, what are you doing, Marlene? I'm like, not taking any chances. Sorry. If not everything is bound to a place. People don't understand that. You got a lot of discarnates, which are free floaters, or that for some reason they want to, if there's anybody sensitive, I mean, there's a million things that could come along with you for the ride and decide to take our presidents. And
Yeah. I'm not John Zaffis. I don't bring artifacts home with me. Uh,
no,
you know,
but still,
uh,
you know what? If you come across as a sensitive, or there's something about you that they think that they can communicate, but this thing where people think that you've got a ghost that's attached to a place and that they can't leave it, I beg to differ on that.
yeah.
How about Waverly Sanitarium? Twice I've tried. I've been going up to Kentucky twice, and my timing has been off to go there, and I've been dying to go there. That is such an interesting place.
Oh, yeah. Everybody needs to go to Waverly. I mean, I spent 5.5 years up there. We were the
Mm-hmm.
first ones to open it up for everybody and give the tours and all that. Got a lot of great evidence out of it. And it just, they don't make buildings like that no more.
Mm-hmm.
And just the sheer history, and there's pictures of the building after it was built in 1926, and it's all farmland, wooded area, and now there's a 8-lane highway that runs right next to it. So
Yeah.
this progress is good for some things and not for others. But everybody needs to go there at least once. And I haven't been there in quite a while, but people I talk to that still go and stuff, they say they get some great stuff out of it.
Now, let me
Hopefully,
ask you the obviously the sanitarium was built because people a lot of times think of they get confused with asylums and sanitariums. They're not the
well,
same
the
thing.
reason why this one really gets that confusion because it was both at one time.
Right, because let me ask you something though. Was it originally built for the tuberculosis patients and then they
Yeah,
used it as an asylum? Okay.
yeah, yeah. In 1910, on that hill, they built a little 2-story, 40-bed wooden hospital up on top of that hill. And in
Ah,
the early 1900s, TB this germ came in and just set down on this area.
okay.
And we basically live in a swamp. It's all lowland stuff,
Mm-hmm.
except for that area out there it's up on a hill, and it's one of the highest points in Louisville. And they had no way of knowing what to do and how to cure this. And by 1920, they'd raised over $11 million, and they'd built what's out there now. And that could house over 200 patients at one time because the little bitty hospital they had there, the 40-bed uh, hospital itself, at one point they housed almost 200 people in there, and that's just crazy. Most of them died. There was no chance. And so yeah, it was Waverly Hills Sanatorium, and there is a difference between sanatorium and sanitarium.
Mm-hmm.
Sanatorium means health, your physical health.
Mm-hmm.
Sanitarium means mental health.
There you go.
So yeah, so basically from 1910 all the way to 1981, it was Waverly Hills Sanatorium, and then it became Woodhaven Geriatrics uh, Sanitarium. So that's why a lot of people get it confused. They think it was a sanitarium because it was.
It was operating till when?
As a TB hospital until 1981. But you got to remember, in 1956, streptomycin was found, which basically eradicated TB overnight.
Right.
And I've still got a scar on my shoulder from where they gave me a TB shot when I was in grade school. Gun and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do that anymore. That's like you hear people yelling about getting vaccinated for COVID stuff. I'm like, look, you don't realize what you were mandated to do back in the 50s and 60s. You had to get these shots going to school, and
Well, you know
you had
what?
to go to school. But,
Tuberculosis was so contagious. People don't realize uh, how that you could catch it. Like you said, from what I understand, even they would even kids would end up there with a parent, for example,
yeah,
staying there
yeah,
because they had nowhere else to go.
yeah. It's real simple. And if you and I were married, and back then those families had a lot of kids,
Mm-hmm.
in that day and age, well, you and I slept in the same bed. Some of those kids probably slept in the same beds.
Yes.
Well, you and I, it was the law. If you got TB in the United States, you had to go to a sanatorium. All right,
Yes.
fine. What do you do with the kids? Aunt Betsy over here doesn't want them because she
Oh
doesn't
no.
want to get sick. So,
Yes.
what do you do with them? They either become wards of the state or they go with.
Yes. People don't realize that back then, people with good reason, by the way, were scared of contagion, and sometimes the symptoms of TB don't show up right away. In other words, you could have it and you wouldn't know it right away as far as like, all the
Yeah,
problems that come with it. So yeah, like you said, you really didn't have a lot of people standing in line saying, yeah, I'll take your kids for you. So yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah. That's like originally Waverly wasn't designed to have kids. but we've got photographs of when it first opened up. They built a play gymnasium on the roof of this
Wow.
5-story building. You know, there's
Wow.
swings and merry-go-rounds and all kinds of stuff, and it's all up on the roof of this thing. And they just made do with what they could.
Yeah, I imagine they did. And because I have heard, that some of the experiences that people have had at Waverly have to do with kids, either hearing children, or things like that. And they say that the source is that they did have children there.
Yeah, there were, and there was a lot of them that died up there. A lot of people talk about Timmy, the boy with the little ball,
Mm-hmm.
little leather ball. I actually have a picture of Timmy.
You do?
And oh yeah,
What happened with that? How did you get that?
Spending 5.5 years up there.
You had to
Yeah,
get at least once, right?
yeah,
But
and and also one night giving a tour. When we first walked in that place, you got to remember it had been closed for almost 20 years at that point. No electricity, no water. Kids have vandalized it just to steal all the copper and tear the place apart. And there was almost 2 foot deep of garbage and dust and debris on the floor, on every floor. All the windows were busted out. And I had a habit of walking backwards, giving a tour and talking to people. And one night I tripped over something and I looked, it's a little leather ball. They don't make little leather balls anymore unless it's a soccer ball or a football or a
mm-hmm.
baseball. This is like a bouncing leather ball. And got the tour done and went, took the ball and put it up on the fourth floor. Waited about 20 minutes, went back up, the ball's gone. Nobody else is in the building. The building's been cleared.
Oh.
We found it down on the second floor. So we took it and put it up on the third floor. Go back in there 20 minutes later, it's up on the fifth floor now. So this went on like 5 or 6 times. And then finally we went through and ended up putting it on the first floor. It was the last place we put it. And went back, it was gone, and nobody's ever seen it since.
Do they call him Timmy because they just gave him the name Timmy, or does anybody know if that's the child's real name? As far as
Well,
that he said,
that's the name that the people there
they
called.
just named the little boy, whoever, Timmy. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. But I've heard there's supposed to be other kids though that are seen in there somewhere. In other words, I had heard about Timmy and the ball, and also they've had. Don't they have a haunting also associated with one of the nursing staff?
Several, because nurses and doctors both got TB up there and died from it. We know that a nurse in the early 20s actually hung herself just outside of room 502.
Mm-hmm.
That's up on the top of the building, and that's who they think is seen a lot up on the fifth floor.
Right. And what a lot of people don't realize that when they had those big sanitariums or asylums, a lot of the staff, they had a building. In other words, they would provide
Yeah,
places for them to live on the grounds. It's not
yeah.
like
This
now where you
place,
leave.
yeah, no, they had a big nurses cottage, and I'm calling it cottage, but it was a 2-story building, like an
Mm-hmm.
apartment complex on the property
Yes.
where the old outdoor mezzanine connected it to uh, the hospital. They also had a black housing area because everything was segregated back then.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They raised their own vegetables and
Yes.
farms, and they had pigs and uh, cows and chickens, and
Yes.
everything was produced there daily, fresh.
Mm-hmm. They were
Because that's all they.
self-sustaining.
That's the only way they could fight it was you got as much good healthy food as you wanted, all the
Mm-hmm.
fresh air, and morphine or aspirin. That's all they had to fight this with. That's why it was also uh,
Yeah.
considered the best technical hospital at the time, because they did a lot of different experiments and stuff, and it's like that's where the pneumothorax was invented, was at Waverly Hills, and
Okay. Right, with that thing and the removal of the ribs.
Yeah, the discotomy, right? And so that the lungs can expand more, get more breath in, and
Mm-hmm.
you know that's why they took them out on the atrium. The ones that were on that side of the building every day, they took them out to get fresh air. We've got pictures of them having snow on their blankets in their bed.
I've seen a couple of those pictures where it looks like they have them, these beds, these hospital beds out in these balconies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I'm thinking, I'm getting cold just looking at it because they were, what was it? The thought or the belief that fresh air would help,
Yeah,
like was curative.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you hear them
And
on,
the way that building was facing, you'd get a cold air from the west coming in, and
mm-hmm,
every floor had the atrium mezzanine on one side of it. But if you went across the hallway,
right.
where on the west side of the building, those are the patients where they put them in, and they probably weren't coming back out.
Yeah. Because I don't want to get but don't they also have, they have a specific haunting tied into, don't they have a tunnel there that was being used for transporting the bodies out?
Well, actually, that tunnel was built before the hospital was. Like I said, this sits up on a hill, and at
Okay.
the bottom of the hill is a train track. So they
Okay.
built that tunnel and they put a rail car system in there to bring supplies up and down, you know, to build the
Okay.
place. And then, once it got built, they used that train car system to lower bodies down to the trains.
How interesting. I did not know that. I always thought that it had been built when they did the actual hospital as a way
No,
of just,
yeah, it was actually built beforehand. And then, like the people, Waverly Hills also owned a bunch of houses on the bottom of the hill where the
mm-hmm,
doctors lived, and they were nice houses and stuff. And that's what the doctors would do. They would come in through that tunnel and walk up because it was heated in the wintertime, and it was cool in the summer because you're underground.
right, exactly. And people don't, yeah, yeah, exactly. That's the thing that I did not know that. Well, I have heard though that, and I don't know if you found evidence that there is some type of, active or intelligent haunting going on in the tunnel.
Well, I'll be honest, I never saw anything intelligent in the tunnel.
Okay.
Uh, and I'll tell you right now, after doing this almost 45 years, I've
Mm-hmm.
never seen a ghost like me or you looking at each other.
Okay. What
I'm,
have you
I'm so,
experienced? Like being like, what is it? What is it? Hearing things or
oh,
like touched
I've,
and stuff like that?
yeah, I've heard, I've been thrown through doors, thrown through walls. A couple
Mm-hmm.
months ago at Post Town, uh, we were laying there trying to go to sleep. Me and my girlfriend were talking, and yes, I have slept in Post Town many a time. Uh, and we're laying there talking. Next thing I know, I got yanked out of the bed by my leg. So,
Oh,
you know,
what?
oh
Eh,
yeah.
ah, it's- and then
No,
I
no,
was gonna
there were
say
no
after that, I don't
cameras.
know what.
There's no cameras on, but if you go to Post Town, their
Uh huh.
website, Daryl Wisman, the owner, he's got a bunch of videos up. He does have a uh, video up of where he got knocked out of the bed and just got scratched up to pieces.
Who do they
And
think
it's
it is? Who or what?
uh,
I'm not gonna.
well, at Post Town, about a half a mile up from it, directly behind it is a railroad track, and about half a
Mm-hmm.
mile up from it was one of the worst train wrecks in Ohio history, in the nation's history, really. And they used the land that was going to be the school, uh,
Okay.
as a triage center where like 200 people died.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And then there's only been one accident inside the school where a little girl was either pushed or fell down a balcony of 3 flights of stairs, but she died in the hospital 2 days later.
Wow. That is so. No. Okay. Who needs to see ghosts? I mean, what happens to you? It's like Now, let me ask, considering all the time that you were going to Waverly, did anything ever follow you home?
No, not that I know of.
And just because of the sheer sense of, familiarity, oh, here he is again. Like, oh, yeah, nobody decided to hitchhike and show up
No,
at home.
not that I know of. If it did, it didn't make itself known. And that's just something I've never worried about. Uh, you know, I've been all over the world doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So, and what's interesting, and it not just playing music, but other places and stuff. Like I said, I'm not psychic, but just the feeling of some of these different places, especially the older places you get to, the castles in England, you feel more. Dracula's Castle, Paneri,
Mm-hmm.
it's got a weird vibe to it. First of all, you got to walk up 2,100 steps to get to it, and you realize this is where he impaled 20,000 Turkish
Let me
soldiers.
let's talk about dark history.
Yeah, but over there, he's considered the national hero.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yes.
he saved them from the Turks,
From the Turks, from
turned
the
them
Ottoman
away.
Empire. Yep.
Yeah.
Keith, have you ever arrived someplace? I think I already know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask, have you ever gone someplace, not ghost hunting, just any place where you've actually been scared?
No, like I said, I'm
No,
old.
I'm going to ask because, and I'm not saying this like that, because, sometimes everybody thinks, paranormal research, sometimes you're not on any type of ghost hunt. You're not doing anything. You could just be traveling and things happen.
No, I've never been scared. My curiosity gets the better of me. What I will tell you is this: there's only been 3 places I've been to where when I walked onto the property, the hair stood up on the back of my neck.
Okay.
And
that was?
First one was the actual Exorcist house because we were the first ones to ever film it and investigate it at the same time.
This is the one with a kid, with a boy, the original one that supposedly that the Alexian brothers did the exorcism on. Okay.
In St. Louis,
Right.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And walked into the house and we caught some wild stuff and Sci-Fi wouldn't show it.
Really?
Yeah. And it just the hair stood up on the back of my neck and I went, wow, okay. The other place was Gettysburg, first time I ever went there, and I got up on Round Top and just looking out over the whole entire plain, and the hair stood up on the back of my neck then. And then the only other place was Custer's Last Stand.
Just the Little Bighorn area.
Yeah, Little Bighorn, and you just walk out there and you go, wow. The sheer madness of one man who had less than 200, battalion of less than 200, thinking he's going to go round up a bunch of old women and old men and children and not listen, just the sheer stupidity. He's not listening to his people who are saying, there's the whole Sioux Nation down there.
Right, exactly. Like, it's not only that he forfeited the lives of his men, basically.
Yeah, just being stupid, thinking he could go down there and beat them. No. I mean,
what's that saying? A legend in his own mind?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And if you do any research on Custer, you'll see he was a megalomaniac, and his ego. Plus, he actually was here in Kentucky. He was stationed here. He got in trouble, and they stationed him here in E-Town at the fort out there, which is like 40 minutes away, to take care of the Ku Klux Klan, to get rid of them. And there was a Masonic home out there that people still go to. That there's letters where he brought his wife Mary. They had a little cottage behind the Masonic lodge. He played checkers with the boys, and drinking cigars and drinking drinks and smoking cigars.
No, let me tell you something. If you look at a lot of these historical figures, they're imperfect, but they're human. You know what I'm saying? But usually those ones with those big egos usually end up doing stupid stuff like that.
Yeah, and getting everybody around them killed. And that's one of the things I love about the paranormal, the history.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, history can prove a haunting almost every time, and
Yes.
you got to do your research. You got to know your craft.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I do everything non-metaphysically. I'll listen to people who say I feel this, or this, that, and the other, but I've also been told I don't like psychics. I'm like, no, some of my best friends are psychics. And then I've been accused of shooting one, and I didn't shoot her. I shot over her head.
Okay. Whoa, 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 whoa. Put the brakes on. Back that up. You need to say
Okay.
that. Tell me that story right there.
Um, there's a place again in E-Town here in Kentucky.
Uh
It's
huh.
called Hell's Gate.
Okay.
People think it's a portal to hell. It's
Right.
just a little old country cemetery, family cemetery.
Is that the one that
And
stole something's cemetery?
no,
Okay.
no.
I got wrong cemetery. Keep going.
Okay. So this famous psychic called me and said, "Hey, I want to go there. Can you arrange it?" Which I did. I knew the family, and you got to go back in the woods, and you go up a little gravel old mud road, and you get there, and there's a little parking spot, and then you got to walk up the hill to get to the cemetery. Most of the things that have come out of there, people saying, "Oh, it's this, it's bugs." It's it's all natural stuff.
Ah,
Way and so, in this person comes with an 18 passenger van, and all these people get out, and I'm like going, "What is this?" And she gets out of the van, and I stick my hand out to shake hers, and she hits the ground, and she's, "Oh, Saint Michael, help me! There's so much dark energy." She's writhing on the ground and going on and on and on. And I'm going, "Lady, you're not even in the cemetery yet. It's up the hill, quarter mile away." And all of these people, they kneel
oh
down
boy.
beside her, and they put one hand on her and one hand up in the air, and they start chanting stuff. You remember Don Knotts and the Ghost of Mr. Chicken?
Yes, I do.
You remember
Yes,
how
I
the
do.
women would walk by and put their hand on him and
Yeah.
go, "Taro, taro." That's what I'm looking at. And this is going on and on. And there was two of my guys with me there, and they said, "And what are we gonna do if she's really sick?" I said, "I guess she's gonna die because I ain't giving her mouth to mouth." And this went on for a couple more minutes. Just as, "Oh, Saint Michael, send energy, help me, please." I'd had enough, and I just pulled my gun and shot it straight up in the air. And
And
just as soon as that hammer hit that shell,
she
he
got all
quit
better.
rising off the ground. Yeah, she stood up. They didn't say a word. They got back into the van and left. And I told my guys, I said, "Well, that's the first time I ever seen a demon run from a 45."
I know. I was gonna say that was a short investigation,
Yeah.
but yeah, that
And I've
oh,
been accused of also throwing somebody off the roof of Waverly. I didn't. I dangled them.
it's just it's all in the wording, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I'd have thrown them off, I'd be in jail. Um,
So
the only
why would you
problem I
want to
had,
dangle somebody off the roof of Waverly?
well,
I
when we were
have
given
doubts.
tours, you get the drunk and the idiots, and there
Mm-hmm.
was this young kid, looked like he's about 12, 13 years old. He had his girlfriend up there. They're taking the tour, and these four older bullies, for a better word, were bullying them. And when we
Okay.
got up to the roof, we told them, you know, "Don't go near the edge because some of the bricks are loose and you could actually fall to your death."
Mm-hmm.
And I just had enough of it. And this one kid grabbed the younger kid, acted like he was going to push him over the edge. And I just grabbed him and slung him. Didn't realize I was slinging him over the edge. And when I did, since I had him there, I just looked at him and he's screaming and everything. I said, "Today's a good day to die, isn't it? How's it feel?" And then I realized I couldn't pull him up.
Oh,
And
okay. It was like, okay, I'm getting too close to the truth on this.
Yeah.
So
So, but no, I didn't throw him. And yes, he got pulled. My helpers that worked with me, they came and helped me pull him up.
it was like that. That must have been one forgettable tour for him.
Yeah, I never saw him after that.
I wonder why. It's like,
Yeah.
really? You're kidding.
Yeah.
So let me. Are you still actively doing investigations now with your group?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That and in the last 20 years, I ran the Mid South Paranormal Convention.
Okay.
Uh, and then after COVID, I kind of had a break here for a couple of years, and we're coming back
Mm-hmm.
this year with what's called Keith Age's Mid America Paracon in October,
Okay.
and part of the national con called Fright Night Film Fest, which is national big time, and they're going to be two shows under one roof for one price. You remember the movie Monster Squad?
Yes, of course, absolutely.
All of them will be there, including the children.
Which are not children anymore. Yes, I've
No,
done.
no, no.
Yeah, I've
Yes,
done a lot of cons. I've gone to. I've participated in a lot of comic cons and you name it, the horror cons. And
same here.
yeah, you see a lot of the people, the nostalgia, and all of a sudden you're looking at them. It's like, okay, yeah, that was once upon a time. But yes, they're all. I was
Yeah,
gonna say they're all alive because man, time goes by, and sometimes some of these the young kids not so much, but the little girl, I imagine she's forget it.
yeah. Phoebe, yeah, she'll be there.
Yeah.
And Andre Gower, who played the little boy, he'll be there. And
Mm-hmm.
all the monsters will be there except for Frankenstein. It's because he died.
Okay,
And
that happens.
yeah, and then on the paranormal side,
Mm-hmm.
right now, got the Booth Brothers, my partners in crime.
Okay.
They'll be there, and then so will Rick Hayes and
Okay.
Jen Hodson, a few others, and that's just the first round of people I'm announcing, and then this week I'll be announcing some more.
What are the dates again, Keith?
It's October 1st through the 3rd in Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay. And what's the name of the show of the convention?
It's
What is it?
Mid America Paracon.
Mid America Paracon. Okay. And
Yeah.
if somebody wants to follow up, what website can they go to get that information?
www.midamericaparacon.com.
There you go. Okay. So are
So,
you? I take it. Are you going to put like it's like are you going to have like your weekend packages or anything like that? Do you know when you're going to be
yeah,
putting up your tickets for sale?
the tickets are already on sale. If you
Oh,
go
they
there,
are.
oh yeah, and
Okay.
it's there's various different things. There's Friday Night does all that, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy. I don't have to do any of that stuff no more. And you can go to also www.frightnightfilmfest.com,
Okay.
and same thing. You ever
Uh-huh.
heard of the actor named Tyler Maine?
Of course, absolutely. Me and Tyler Maine and my husband, we did Fear Fest out in Biloxi, Mississippi a few years ago where we were playing cards. So yes,
Yeah,
I know Taylor Maine, tall guy. Yes, and
yeah,
Tony Todd, by the way, also. Yes.
yeah. Well, Tyler will be there.
Yes, he's a very
And
nice gentleman, by the way.
oh
Very,
yeah,
very nice man.
oh yeah. And are you a fan of the Rob Zombie Halloween movies?
No, but my husband is, oh my God, that captain. Oh, no, it's a little bit too gory for me. I'm
No,
just,
no, no.
I
The
mean,
His his Halloween movies, not
I know,
House of a Thousand Corpses, not
I
Captain
know,
Spaulding.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm kind of like, let me tell you something. I love horror movies and I've always loved horror movies, but I guess that I'm always expecting from Rob Zombie, it's going to be like, it's going to be too much for me. It's kind of like, oh, too graphic, too realistic. How's that? Because, there's
oh
some
yeah,
movies that are graphic, but they're not really realistic. It's like, oh, here, all right, go back to,
yeah. Well, the Captain Spaulding, who you just mentioned, said,
yes.
"Hey, he and I were good friends, and he was actually a ghost hunter.
I did not
He
know
would
that.
go, yeah, he'd go out and hunt with uh, me and he hunted with me and Brian Harnwall at
Hmm.
a prison up in Pennsylvania, several different other places. Here, I'll give
Okay.
you another one people don't know. Do you remember James Hampton, the actor?
James Hampton. No, I'm drawing a blank on
Remember,
that.
remember F Troop?
Yes, of course.
Remember Dobbs the Bugler?
Yeah, that's him.
That's he also played the father of Teen Wolf.
Yes, you're right. You're right. Yes, I know who that is. Wow.
Nominated for an Academy Award for Sling Blade. Uh, also, he
That's
was
right.
the
He was in Sling Blade.
yeah he was the original caretaker in Burt Reynolds' the original movie Longest Yard.
Yes. Yes.
Uh, Him and his
Absolutely.
wife are very dear close friends of mine. He just died last month, but they are
Yeah.
also ghost hunters.
I did not know that.
You'd be
Now that you
surprised.
mentioned Burt Reynolds, I went to one of I want to say I saw Burt Reynolds. It was Spooky Empire that they have over here in Florida, and he did an appearance with his car from, Smoking the Bandit,
Bandit One. Yep.
and that was great to see him. It was like, wow, even though he's a Floridian, I
Oh yeah.
and he was there with a car, and I mean, he already passed away. I want to say this was what, 2016, 2015, something like that. But yeah,
Yeah. He died about 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
I met him down. Uh, I was an officer when I lived down, and I had to go do a prisoner transfer, and it was after I did that, I went to this little deli. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
he walked in, you know, got to meet him, talked to him. While we're sitting there, somebody ran into his car, parked car. So yeah. But
Incredible. But
I
yes,
think they just sold his property in Juniper Hills.
really.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, I know that I know that he had different properties that got sold along the way, but I thought that I didn't know anything like that his property had gone up or was up for sale or something like that.
yeah. That well, it, the main house was where he was at, and
Mm-hmm.
whole bunch of acreage, and then also the theater that he built there.
Right, right. The Burt Reynolds Dinner Theater. Yeah, that
Yeah.
I
So
didn't know he
all
still
that
had
got
that.
sold.
Yes,
Well,
but a lot of
it all got
nostalgia
sold.
involved with that.
Oh yeah.
I know. I lately, believe it or not, I've caught a couple of his early movies. Like really, this was even before he became known, through Smoking the Bandits. Way, way, way before that.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Sam Whiskey, and I can name
yes,
a few. Yeah.
yes,
I,
it
I
was like
remember his TV show Dan August.
I remember that. Even though they say that his breakout role, the one that really made him famous, was when he did Deliverance, but people don't realize he did a lot of stuff before Deliverance.
Yeah, he started in the mid 50s, and
Mm-hmm.
what his the role that got him going was Gunsmoke. He was a regular the first 2 years
Yeah.
on Gunsmoke,
Yes.
and then from
Yes.
there that led to more TV work,
Right.
and then in the 70s, he did, like I said, did Dan August TV show, and
Mm-hmm.
because he would do his own stunts and everything,
Yeah.
people were drawn to him, and then he did a bunch of Western movies and spaghetti Western and
Yes.
bad Westerns, and then he did Deliverance, and then it just exploded.
Yeah, and that's when I think that's when, because back then, you remember there was always a differentiation between your TV stars and your movie stars.
Yeah, yeah.
And everybody was always hoping to go and become a movie star. Um, that kind of thing.
Hey, that's the paranormal world now. You know,
I know, I
people
know.
people get into it for the wrong reason. They think they're going to be a star.
It's called
And they go,
sensationalism. I
yeah,
know.
and my lectures and stuff, I talk about this, and people go, "Well, you're only saying that because you've had 4 or 5 different TV shows." And I'm like, "No, I've had 10 movies, and I've been on over 40 different TV shows, and yes, I've had 3 different series. But no, I didn't get into it to do that. I said I already had my fame years ago. I'd rather be known as the rock and roll ghost hunter or the rock and roll whatever, because that's
Hmm.
where my first passion is." because I still play, and you know, and they're going, well, you probably made a lot of money. I'm like, son, paranormal TV pay sucks. If you're getting into it for
Uh-huh.
that,
Yeah.
and they're going, well, you're at all these conventions. I said, because you people asked me to be, you know,
Of course. Of course.
and that's
And
just
people
like,
don't realize that this thing about the reality show, this is basically what, a 15-year thing. Way back then, there was nobody was walking around like trying to do reality shows. You had like what, In Search Of. I mean, there were like
in search
productions.
of in the '70s was big, and
Mm-hmm.
then they're going, well, X Files. I was like, well, X Files started in the '90s, but
Yes.
it didn't get broken up until Ghost Hunters in 2004.
Right.
And then we came along in 2005,
Right.
and I said, and then Chris Fleming had Dead Talk,
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Burns, the three top paranormal shows in 2005, 2004, 2006 was Ghost Hunters, us,
Yes.
and Patrick's show, Haunted Evidence. Those
Right.
were the three top. And
Yes.
then since then, you've had everything but the kitchen sink thrown at.
Yes, I know. I know. I know. And sometimes I'll watch some shows just to see, like, I'm like, I want a fresh approach, like, tell me, you know, and to be perfectly honest with me personally, because of the long history of that I've done, I'm not really partial to so much equipment that they've got nowadays. And I know they're trying to produce proof or it looks good, but for the true paranormal investigator, that's really a distraction. If what you're really trying to do is research. Now, if you're
Yeah,
trying to make it look interesting, that's a whole different thing.
yeah, you got to make it look good for TV.
Yes,
Uh,
I know. I know. And you know
that
what?
that that. Go ahead.
No, that's what I'm saying. I get a lot of people that contact me about becoming investigators and which group. And I tell them, okay, you know what? See if you can find a group that will give you on a test run, because a lot of people are disappointed with real paranormal investigations where it might be boring or nothing goes flying across the room.
Yeah,
In other words, they're thinking that they're going to have the reality TV version of an investigation, and come to
and that's
find
not
out
it.
that's not it. And, or, you know what, that client can only see you on the weekend. That's the only time that they can allow somebody in their house. So you also have to give up your weekend if you're really serious about it. So a lot of the interest, now I'm going to say all, some of the interest in being an investigator goes south
Real
once they,
quick.
yeah, once they
Yeah,
realize, it's not what I thought that I was going to be going to these places, and like, nah, and I said, you know what? There's places you go to, there's nothing happening. There is nothing
yeah.
going on.
Ghost hunting is the one of the boringest hobbies that's
Yes.
out there right now. Nothing has been proven.
No.
Uh,
It's
there is not one tangible piece of evidence yet. We have, a lot of personal experiences,
mm-hmm.
and then we capture the EVPs and things moving and stuff like that. And you're
Right.
lucky if you do. You're very lucky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And because what I used to do, people, would flood me out saying, I want to be a ghost hunter. I want to be part of the LGHS. Well, fine. I'd take them to a house that had activity, just you don't know when it's going to do it.
Right.
And I'd make them sit there in the dark for 8 hours. All right, fine. Got bored watching the paint dry. Now you're
Yes.
going to get even more bored. We had 10 different digital recorders going, and we had 6 different digital cameras going for 10
Mm-hmm.
hours straight. Now you've got to get up there and watch and listen to all that.
All that
So
material.
now,
Yeah.
yeah, and hopefully you'll capture something.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that can be, talk about time consuming.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
And I tell it that, I don't know if you've heard that there is a joke, how stuff happens either before you've unpacked equipment or after you put it away. It's like,
yeah, oh yeah.
it's like,
It's like me. Years ago, I used to bring a lot of equipment for people to use and stuff like that, and I
mm-hmm.
quit doing it. I might carry a bag, and that's it.
Right.
My main thing that I use nowadays is the FLIR system.
Right.
The thermal imaging. That
Mm-hmm.
is actual science, and we've caught some great stuff on it. that we
Okay.
set back, for Children of the Grave 2, caught some wild stuff and sent it to FLIR, and they're going, "What the hell is this?" And I'm like, "You're the scientist. You tell
Okay.
me." You know, and they're
What
just
did you
like,
catch? What did you clutch on that FLIR
"We
camera?
what?" If you go watch Children of the Grave 2, we're
Okay.
at an old abandoned home for children,
Okay.
and we're in a room, and it's not good to give me a camera and just let me get bored. uh, we have a
Oh,
psychic
okay.
that's doing his thing in the middle of the room, 50 something degrees outside,
All right.
and this an interior wall. He's doing his ooga booga stick, and I'm really getting bored with it quick. So I just turned the camera around, looking at everything, and all of a sudden capture what looks like the wall is swirling in purple and different colors. And I'm like, what is this? And I can see a grip, a guy who's holding a light bar. That's all you see is his hand. And of course, it's different colors because he's showing up as heat. Well,
Okay.
you got him, and you got his thermal shadow on the wall. That's normal. It's going to do whatever he does. Well, all of a sudden, the swirling motion swirls over to where he's at, and it takes the shape of a third shadow on the wall. And I'm telling him, raise his hand, do this, do that, and both shadows are doing the same thing. This shouldn't be happening. There shouldn't be a second thermal shadow here. And this goes
Oh,
on. This goes on for 6 minutes of me telling him what to do, and the booth brothers over here filming behind me. They're telling me to be quiet. And after about, like I said, 6 minutes, this thing is on the right of me. All of a sudden, on film, it walks away. You see it walk,
okay. That's
and
pretty impressive
so
proof.
I just started calling it Peter Pan effect. Peter Pan lost his shadow.
Right. Uh-huh.
So, and like I said, we sent to FLIR, and FLIR's like, we have no idea what this is. You know, it was there any
And let me ask you
barrier?
something. It wasn't giving off heat, or what was it? Or was
No,
it
it was
just
showing as cold. It was showing as very cold. It was
colder?
showing as being colder
Colder.
than the air
Okay.
temperature. Yeah,
Okay. Because I was
yeah,
thinking, man,
because
that would be a neat trick. So it was
well, because
showing
like I said,
colder than the surrounding. Oh,
well,
wow.
what it is, you can see, like I said, the grip's hand. Then you see his
Uh-huh.
thermal shadow, which is a
Right.
colder version on the wall, and then there's
Mm-hmm.
an even colder version of that shadow. You know, it's like
Oh,
looking in one of those funhouse mirrors where you see all the way, 50 different versions of an image. That's
let
what
me
we're looking.
tell you, that would be. How did he feel? Did he ever see that? Did you guys play back for this person? Did you? He must have been like, what?
Oh yeah, like I said, this was a guy that, when me and the Booth brothers shot these movies,
Mm-hmm.
people think we had a great big production team. No, we didn't. It was just the three of us shooting and
Wow.
filming, and then we might have one or two people helping us carry stuff. That's it.
So yeah, you were there watching what was going on, like firsthand. It was like right there because you guys were actually doing the actual filming. In other words.
Yeah, because originally with Children of the Grave was a second movie, and we used a very old FLIR system that did not, you couldn't cable out of it, to go into a
Okay.
camera or something. And so back then, if I was capturing something, here I am filming it. Chris is on my shoulder with his camera, filming the thermal, me filming that, and then Phil would be on Chris's shoulder filming both of us.
Okay. I see what you mean. That's incredible. That's a great story, by the way. And even though you were saying that no proof has been captured, that's pretty convincing proof when you have that type of camera capture that, especially
Yeah, but
when it walks away.
that is a phenomenon that we do not know what created it. And that's just like, people say ghost, 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 ghost. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't even use the term ghost anymore. It could be some little green men on a far off planet going, watch this. We we don't know what it is yet. It's a phenomena that's happening,
Yes.
but we can't explain it. That's just like people talk about orbs. I am not an orb person.
No, 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 no.
When you can recreate it 99.9% of the time. Plus,
Yes.
I got stabbed by a lady because of an orb.
You
Uh,
got stabbed by a lady because of an orb. You must say that.
stabbed, stabbed.
Stabbed? Like in stabbed.
Yeah, like it's an 8-inch butcher knife by 2 inch. Yeah,
Why would she do that? I gotta hear the story. You have to say that story.
because she was crazy.
Okay.
uh,
All right.
but this happened at a convention,
Okay.
and if you've been on the receiving end, you'll know what I'm talking about. People
Mm-hmm.
walk up with pictures all the time. What's this? What do you think about this?
Yes.
And I give them my honest opinion. This lady puts this picture down. What do you think about this? And I'm like, it's a dust orb. And she just looks at me like she's ready to kill me. She says, no, that's my dead Aunt Petunia. And I went to explain to her how the camera catches the dust orb with the lens of
Yes.
the
Exactly.
flash. I feel something hit me in my chest area. And I look down, and it's this 8-inch by 2-inch butcher knife jammed to the hilt.
What?
And, oh yeah, she stabbed me over this friggin' orb picture.
So
And
what she's carrying? What, she pulled that out of her purse? What the hell?
well, I didn't notice it, but she had it in her hand. She's sitting there talking, and I was more interested in trying to explain to her what was going on in the picture. And I don't know, you know, you know who Kane Hodder is?
Yes, I do.
He's another,
Jason, right?
another long
Well,
time friend.
yeah, I know.
And I'm trying to swing my right arm, and she's jammed it into the socket of my right arm,
Oh
and
my
I can't move.
God.
And
Oh,
that's the only woman I've ever hit in my life.
I
And
don't blame you. I mean, come on.
I
Let me
ended
ask
up
you,
swinging.
did she hang on to it, or did she just like clunk and what did she? Or she was
Yeah,
planning
that's
to
it.
keep going with the stabbing thing?
She probably got stuck because I couldn't move my arm, and it was jammed in the shoulder socket.
Oh,
And like I said, I was upset. I swung and I connected, and I went to pull the knife out, and Kane and them were going, no, 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 no,
no.
sit down, don't touch this. But she got out of prison about 3 years ago. She spent 15 years of a 17-year sentence for
I was
attempted
you,
murder.
you beat me to the question, like what happened to her, man.
Yeah. Oh,
But
they
she must
arrested.
have but she couldn't have been too well upstairs. I mean, come on.
I told you she was nuts.
I mean, but no, literally she was nuts. It's not like not
Yeah.
like, oh, you're nuts. You know what? And
Yeah.
that's I have found through my years, mental instability and the supernatural or the occult, they don't mix well. Is you get
No.
stuff like that happening.
Yeah. And
Lucky
then
you.
people, yeah. And then I've had people walk up and, hey, you're supposed to be a tough guy, a biker, huh? And I'm like, yeah, I ride, and I take a swing or whatever. You're just crazy. But back to the orb stuff.
So anyway, the next time that somebody asks you, look, it's that orb, it's my Aunt Petunia, you're like, absolutely, that is your aunt.
No, usually my hand is on my gun at that point.
But you know what I'm talking about. It's like, talk about unexpected. I imagine everybody around you must have been like, what?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like I said, I was trying to pull it out, and they were like, no, get your hand off. Leave it alone.
Forget that pulling out. It's how did this lady come up? I mean, I imagine they're probably seeing somebody trying to show you something. The next thing she's pulled out a butcher. Well, obviously you're alive to tell the story, but
that's
took you to the hospital?
Yeah, oh yeah. Kane and I have done a lot of gigs together and stuff. And we were at this other convention. They had security around us, like in a wedge
Mm-hmm.
and we were behind the wedge, but they didn't have anybody behind us. And my hair used to be down to the middle of my back, and we're standing there waiting to go into this meet and greet thing, and I felt my head jerk back real quick, and I was like, "What the heck?" And I turn around and look. There's this girl running around. She got scissors in one hand and about 10 inches of my hair in the other, and she's going, "I got it! I got his hair! Got his hair!" And Kane looks at me and he goes, "I thought I'd seen everything, boy." He says, "Your fans are freakier than mine." I was like, "No, I just got more hair." And
Aren't you glad she was a fan, right? And not something else? I mean, if she's doing that as a fan.
oh yeah, and then 4 days later, she put my hair up on sale on eBay. And
What?
oh yeah,
That's
yeah,
funny. That's incredible. I need to make some
yeah.
quick money. Whose hair am I going to chop off?
Hey, you wouldn't believe the death threats and everything else that we get for having a TV show. You know,
Really? Why?
oh, oh yeah, it's crazy.
I guess you
We've
know
had
what I mean that's not it's a paranormal show. There's nothing offensive about it.
some people just do not want to listen to what you got to say.
Ah, yes, yeah. Well,
And
let
and
me
like
tell you
I
something,
said,
boy. Are you? When are you going to write a book about all these adventures, Keith?
I've
Man, this
already
sounds
wrote one book and it's sold out,
okay.
and it
All
took me
right.
10 years to write it, and I don't want to write another one. I hated it.
Oh, dictate it. Have somebody do the legwork for you because it sounds like you've got so many great stories.
Well, those were rough, wild times back then. That's why they call me the outlaw ghost hunter and everything else. I'm liable to pull up on a Harley as much as being to a car. And I've been all through Australia on a bike, going visiting these haunted places from one end of Australia to the other. So you know, it's
Oh,
pretty good. I have fun with it, and now I've got my own production company, and
okay.
we're going to be filming a new series. It's called Haunted Bourbon,
Okay.
and about different places around here in Kentucky, because this is the bourbon state,
Yes.
and it's either gonna be haunted bourbon or bourbon spirits. I'm leaning more towards bourbon spirits,
Mm-hmm.
and it's nothing new, nothing fantastic. Hey, oh my God, look at this! Or did you
Mm-hmm.
hear that? Or wait a minute, I'm getting possessed. You know, you know,
Oh, stop.
nothing like
You know
that.
what? I have to. I was back in Lexington in 2017. I went to a scare fest. Was a scare fest. So
Yeah,
anyway, when I went there, I went to a couple of the cemeteries there, and they had you
huh?
guys got some interesting cemeteries in that area. As far as haunted stuff going in and around them, of course, everybody's like a cemetery, but there's some like there's one which is Georgetown. I believe that the one that's buried there is what they called Tent Girl, that she was found dead, and it took forever to finally get her identified. She's buried there. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting places around there in
Yeah,
Kentucky.
if you ever come to Louisville, you need to go to Cave Hill Cemetery. It's one of the largest cemeteries in the country.
Cave
Uh,
Hill?
Colonel, Colonel Sanders is buried there. Muhammad
Really?
Ali,
You're kidding.
presidents. No, it's huge.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I myself don't do too many cemeteries, uh,
Oh,
just because the common sense in me is going, no. Uh, here's my thing on it, real quick, real simple. First of
hmm.
all, a lot of cemeteries don't want you there.
No, now they don't. No, now it's become a problem. It has.
Yeah.
Yes.
Number two, God forbid you die today, okay? All right? And then you have your choice of where you'd like to go to haunt someplace. Are you going to haunt either A, someplace you love, B,
Hmm.
somebody you hate, someplace you hate, or
Okay.
C, are you going to go haunt this piece of hole in the ground you've never been to in your life?
You know what? But you do have. There's some people though that pass away and don't get it. They missed. They didn't get the memo about that they pass away, so they follow their bodies around. And I think that sometimes, like when you get those pictures in certain cemeteries, and I'll tell you what, Also, you will have a lot of occult practices and ceremonial objects that are left
I
in and around
totally agree.
cemeteries.
Totally agree with that. Or you got murdered right there.
Okay, and
If something has happened,
invocations, you get a lot of stuff, a lot of non-human activities, you know, because of it's used because you know everybody thinks of graveyards or cemeteries being consecrated ground, hallowed, whatever, blah 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 blah. But precisely because of that, you do get a lot of occult practices that use the grounds, leave things there,
yep,
bind it in there.
the powers that are binded to the ground. Yes.
Yes, so yeah, that's why I'm saying I agree with you up to a certain point, but there's also other stuff there, especially there's graveyard sentinels. There's a bunch of other stuff roaming around that sometimes you will get weird stuff. But also the same thing of what you mentioned as far as that before people really didn't care if you went to a cemetery. Who cares, you know? So you decided nowadays a lot of them are really strict on letting anybody in there, even during the daylight hours
Yep.
because of that. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I work with that service Find a Grave, and I get a lot of requests for people wanting to get certain graves, you know, in the area where you're at photographed. And you got to be careful where you're going, or you got to let people know that you're in there, because if not, you could find yourself in a weird situation.
Yeah.
With
Or they also have weird hours of service, and
yes, they do. They do.
you know, some places they close at dark, other places close at 4 p.m.
Yes.
Who knew?
I got locked into the one in Daytona because of that. And the bar patrons across the street, thank God, at the Boot Hill Saloon, came over with a ladder and got me out. So
Oh,
yes.
is that Marin's Cemetery?
No, it's called was it Pinewood? It's the original old cemetery for Daytona.
Yeah, that's the Marins. Yeah,
And you
that's
know,
what it
right
was
across the
originally called.
street is the Boot Hill Saloon. Everybody
Boot
hangs
Hill
out there.
Saloon. Yeah.
And I went in there and it was daylight and I didn't look, and they were like closing. And the next thing I know, I'm leaving and both gates are locked and they couldn't find the guy that normally would hang out. And thank God these guys had got a ladder. I had to jump over the iron fence. It was like, yeah. So yes, and that was in the middle of the afternoon, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand exactly what you mean by
Yeah, that's why I knew where it was when you said Boot Hill Cemetery in
yeah.
Daytona.
Yeah, they got a lot of interesting graves there. And I used to know a girl. She passed away, believe it or not. She her name was Dusty. She wrote a book, and
Dusty Road.
Yes, you know Dusty or knew Dusty?
I knew Dusty for 35 years.
Really? Okay.
We were very good friends.
Well, we went out. I went out there. This was many years ago. This is because you know that that show, A Haunted or whatever. They based one of their episodes on some, you know, what she wrote in her book.
Right.
And I remember we went out to dinner. I went in. I did the tour with her, and she was telling us about, you know, how they were on her end that they were trying to preserve the graveyard because it's a very old cemetery. Like it needs upkeep. And
yeah, because they had a problem with the older section that
yes,
the sea level was rising underneath it, and the graves were popping out. Now there, I could see somebody getting upset because their graves been tampered with, and they were popping up out of the ground, and they actually had to bring dirt fill in to make it, you know, bigger, make it more hilly to where they had more room to bury. Yeah.
Right. And they've got some of like the some of the basically the founders of that area are buried there. They've got like the original things. And I remember her telling me, and she told me a story that the older man that kind of like was her mentor as far as preserving it, he ended up helping somebody that was homeless, and the person turned around and killed him. But he used to be right. I remember she told me that story. And you know, in other words, basically that the caring of the place was on a volunteer kind of basis. So yeah, I remember, and we had a good time, and you know, every once in a while we traded emails, and I was very surprised to find out when she passed away. But yeah, and
Yeah,
her boy came out to dinner with us also. I can't remember his name now.
yeah, yeah. I had talked to her like a month before she was just starting to go downhill.
Really?
Um, because right before that,
Mm-hmm.
her, me, Bill Bean. Uh,
You know Bill Bean?
oh, Bill Bean is lead
The
guitarist
best.
for the Orb Tones, my band, one of my bands.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah,
anyway, keep going with your story. So you got together with Dusty what shortly before?
yeah, like a month before she actually started going downhill in
Mm-hmm.
Georgia, and we were all at the Hilton, Jason Hawes, a bunch of us. I mean, so you're talking early 2000s something.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the date, but then within a month she was gone.
Right. And I don't know. I remember when she went to dinner, we took her son. I want to say he must have been like 12, 11, 12, 13. He was a young
11,
teenager.
I was gonna say, yeah,
Yeah, that
he,
was he was nice kid, real nice, real sweet kid, and we all went out to dinner. And I mean, she was a great story, and she really gave us behind the scenes look at what the story that she wrote about the investigation of what took place. A lot of it, which of course never made it into the show itself,
yeah,
but which was very interesting and very frightening. It was like, man, you're brave, girl.
yeah.
But
I love Dusty to pieces, and
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
some of the people that I've known since the '90s. I think the only one still around is Troy Taylor. And
yes, he's been God for a long time. He's been doing this, all this books, and he's excellent.
yeah, oh yeah, him and I are real good friends. And like I said, there's a lot of us gone now. And like I said, I've got my own production company, so I'm doing that. And with COVID, that kind of changed the whole
Yes,
entire landscape
yes.
about doing things. And I usually do 48 to 50 gigs a year, and last year I did 3.
No, it totally. As a matter of fact, I'm working on a new book, and I'm trying to get locals because out here we've got not only do we have ghosts, we've got UFOs, we've got Bigfoot. So I said, you know what? I need to interview some people, and I was going to do like a meetup group, like let's meet people, like in person. I said, you know what? I know there's going to be somebody out there with a great story who's for some reason doesn't want to meet, so I'm offering them like, if you want to, we'll interview, talk to me, on the phone, on a Zoom call, whatever you want, because I know that there's still people out there that are kind of wigged out with this thing, and others
Do
don't
you
care. But
do you know who Tim Yancey is?
what's the name again?
Tim Yancey?
Yancey? No.
He is in your part of the country.
Okay.
Great guy. Him and his wife Trish.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he is the what's the word I'm looking for here? Every bit of George Lutz's file and pictures and everything of Amityville was passed to him, and he was best friends with George Lutz for years. And
Really?
that's somebody you might want to talk to. His name is Tim Yancey. Tell him I said that.
Tim Yancey.
Yancey.
Cey. Okay, I was going to leave out that E at the Tim Yancey. I will absolutely look him up. I never knew. You know what? I assumed that that material would have gone to Lutz's, kids, their children, whatever.
Well, Chris, the youngest, who's a friend of mine,
Mm-hmm.
he actually has changed his name and doesn't really want to talk about none of it.
You know what? Up
Yeah.
to a certain point, you can't. I would understand that. I can understand that.
Oh yeah, yeah, and like I said, the thing that always got me in the original murders
Mm-hmm.
that happened there, there
Right.
is one photo, and Tim actually has the photo and a lot of other photos people have not seen, but the
Okay.
original the DeFeo murders, uh,
Right.
there is a picture of staircase, and at the top of the stairs there's a bunch of police officers and detectives milling around up there,
Mm-hmm.
and in between them is a picture of a little boy standing there.
I want to
Now,
see that. I've seen the one that everybody shows, which is the little boy looking over the banister. You know,
yeah,
like
that he has the original.
really. And
Yeah.
that, believe it or not, of all the photographs, of all those stuff that's been compiled, I would say that one is one of the ones that, you felt like your hair standing on end, like, wow, what is this?
Well, my thing on it is Ronald DeFeo had killed everybody in the house except for him. Who's this kid? Where'd he come from?
Well, and one of the things that I've always thought was really unusual about that case, I mean, as far as the murder, how come none of the neighbors heard anything?
Yeah, a 44 hunting rifle shooting
Multiple shots,
seven. Yeah,
multiple shots,
7 times,
and nobody
and the
wakes up.
house. Yeah, and these houses are not that far away, and they're not really close, but they're not that far away.
Well, the thing
And
is, this is the middle of the night. It's a quiet residential area where you think anybody hears a gunshot and they're going to be like, what was that?
yeah, somebody trying to steal my boat. Yeah,
Whatever. It's like, I'm getting up and I'm going to check it out, or I'm going to call the police, something. That's the one that I try to massage it this way and that way. And I'm like, you know what? And there was, a matter of fact, there was another case that occurred also in the 70s. Same thing. He was one of these family annihilators, and it was in Ohio, and it was called the Easter Sunday slayings. And this guy, he did something. He wiped out his mother, his brother, the wife, and a bunch of kids. And at the end, he turned himself in, whatever. Same thing on an Easter Sunday. Nobody hears in the middle of the afternoon, multiple shots going off. The police end up coming because he calls them. He calls the police. And when I hear this, it's like, you know what? You don't want to look at, and I'm not, by this, I mean the hokey part of the paranormal. I'm talking here to truly either occult/malevolence, that you think, man, there's something going on when these events of bloodletting take place.
Yeah, it's not like they had a silencer. Not like they had a silencer on it,
Right. Well,
Yeah.
well, no,
the case you're talking about, it wasn't a rifle, it was a shotgun.
Yes.
I mean, killed like 6 people in their beds,
right,
or around their beds, but nobody tried to run out of the home.
No, those are the things that you're like, unless you're there, of course, which, the only one that is, he's sitting in jail or prison, whatever. It's like something there doesn't add up, doesn't make sense, doesn't, like, why, and from what I understand, there was, they did toxicology on all of them. There's nothing that came back with any type of, like, that they were drugged or anything like that.
Yeah.
So,
and again, you're right. And this is, if I remember, it was like 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the afternoon when this happened.
Yes.
So there were housewives and children playing outside.
Exactly.
And as well as I do, if my next door neighbors fired off a shotgun inside his house, we're 30 feet away, but I'd still hear it.
I'll tell you what. I've lived in residential areas where I live out now. If you hear shotgun, you don't pay attention to it because that happens. But everybody knows
somebody's getting dinner. Yeah.
Whatever, or what. That's not a big deal. But you live in a residential area where you've got houses and houses and houses and kids running around. It's residential. Believe me. You even get firecrackers going off and people think it's somebody shooting. It's like they call the cops because, hey, somebody's firing off a gun. It's just fireworks. So those are the things that to me are like very weird, very, and I want to say not the glitzy part of the paranormal, as far as when you start looking at something, obviously, which is called mass murder or family annihilators, that very dark, very disturbing. And no, of course, afterwards, this thing with, and by the way, a lot of people don't realize that the Lutzes had 2 children of their own afterwards, because everybody always sees the 3 that they had when they moved into the house, but they went on to have their own children together after the fact.
Yeah. Yeah, Christopher, like that was Kathy's youngest son
Mm-hmm.
that
Right.
George adopted. Yeah, and then
Yes.
then Kathy and George went on to have a couple more before they got divorced.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They they and you get so many conflicting stories, whether they recanted or whether they stuck to their guns and said no, that it was the truth. I mean, there's so many versions of that. Um,
Yeah,
that
like I said, that picture you and I both are talking about,
mhm.
that's whether something happened in the house.
Oh,
Chris
absolutely, something happened.
Chris will only talk about so much, and but that picture of that child at the banister with
That
all those
is
cops, all those cops around, the
nobody's.
whole family, yeah, whole family's done been slain,
Mhm.
and what is this child doing there? And the cops not paying no attention to
Exactly. Like if this was a real kid, they'd be like, "What are you doing here, kid?" You know, and nobody's reacting.
him.
To me, that's see, those are those very those captures on film that it doesn't have to be gory or scary. It's just like it's so out of place, that one particular thing, that it's like, oh, geez, talk about, you know, and
Yeah,
it, he appeared very
yeah,
normal looking. How's that? He didn't.
yeah. And then you go back to what we was talking about a while ago. Not everything is paranormal.
Mm-mm.
And you know, I had this lady call me once. She says, "You got to come quick. My dead ex-husband is haunting me." And I really I said, "What makes you think this?" She says, "Because the toast burns every time like he likes it." And I said, "Excuse me?"
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
she says, "Yeah, uh, I got a brand new toaster from Walmart, and it burns the toast every time." And I said, "Ma'am, see that little button on the side? Because I've done turned it all the way down." Okay. I said, "Well, take it back to Walmart, get a new toaster." He's like, "No, he'd be haunting them every day, and those poor people in Walmart are very nice to me, and I like them all, and this, that, and the other." And I said, "Okay, throw it away." And she's like, "No, then he'd be riding in the garbage truck." And, and I was like, "Okay." I said, "You still got the toaster?" He goes, "I sure do." I said, "Well, we're going to get ready to go." He goes, "What I do?" I said, "Well, take you a paper towel, put it on the counter next to the toaster."
Oh,
I
I
can
know
hear,
where this is
I can hear
going.
her rip the paper towel. He lays it down, says, "Okay, now what?" I said, "Pick up the toaster, turn it upside down over the paper towel, hit it on the counter." I hear this plunk. I know she did it. The next thing I hear is, "Oh my Lord in heaven, I've got his ashes." I was like, "There you go." I said, "Roll them up in a ball and go throw them in the garbage." He goes, "Have a garbage disposal. Would that work?" I said, "That's even better."
You didn't ask her if by any chance she carried a butcher knife around with her, right?
I didn't know what kind of psychotropic drug she's on either.
Yeah, she needs the upper dosage. But
That's what I said. But
yes,
no, not everything is paranormal.
I know
Fear,
that.
adrenaline go a long way of making ghosts appear.
How about
Uh,
bored?
yeah, loneliness.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
That's people don't realize how much that'll fuel long. Hey, that noise I heard in the whatever is like, yeah, you've got a pigeons in your attic, whatever. No, it's
Uh,
the whatever coming to get me. Let's all run out into the car and sleep in the car. Are you kidding me?
yeah, and then you've also got some ghost groups out there that just need to be shot. Uh,
I know.
Plain and simple.
I know.
We went to this one house. Come to the house. I've already had a team out here. They were here for 15 minutes and left screaming. Like, what? So we get out there. This guy's walking away from his house because of this group. You know, so we
Yes.
investigated his house for 6 months because they told him he had six demons living underneath his stairs.
Not one, but six. Wow.
Six.
Yeah.
Yeah. he showed us some of the things, and some of the things we automatically knew what was going on, just natural stuff, like
Right.
like the kitchen door. It opens and closes on its own. Well, it opens on its own, but it doesn't close. That's because it's out of plumb,
Yeah.
you know, and
Hmm.
it doesn't have a ballast on it to swing backwards. The other thing is, you know, he's got a brand new TV. It just bought from Walmart. It turns off and on by itself and changes channels by itself. Well, we went did a little dig and went next door to the guy who lived next door. He bought the same TV at the same sale.
Remote. I know.
Yeah, and put it on the same wall as this TV's on, and he's having trouble too. He's already took it back 3 times.
At
Uh,
least he did try doing it that way.
yeah, so there's that, and finally, after like I said, 6 months of us just saying, look, here's what's causing this, this, and this. He says, well, what happened to the demons? I think they left 15 minutes after they got there.
Because he didn't. They didn't say what it was that drove him out. It was like, we're going to let you assume that whatever it is, it's horrific.
Yeah, and this guy was ready to ruin his, financial rating and everything else by walking away from this house,
Yeah.
and the bank have it back because of some idiots. And,
Yes.
that goes back to the whole thing of, people getting in for the wrong reason and then not doing
Yes.
their diligent work,
Yes.
their own homework on this stuff.
Yep. Yep. And I, because I get it from both ends. I have people contacting me about joining a group, or I get people saying they want a group to come out to do something at their house. And I say, well, you need to do your research. One of the best things to find out is how long they've been together. I said, because this lets you know that these people at least have gelled, and if they've been doing at least a couple of years, 3-4 years or more, that's usually a good sign that they know what they're doing. And that you stand a better chance than having what you just described happen, where it's like, hey, what's wrong? But, they're already peeling out from your driveway.
Yeah. Crazy.
And of course. Anyway, Keith, thank you. It's been great to talk to you. I've had such a great
Same
time.
here. Same here. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I'll go ahead and I'll put a link on the credits of the show as far as your website. And then, of course, you mentioned it for my podcast listeners, especially for the event that you've got going on in October, which is Halloween time.
We've got a bunch of events. I do put on a lot of events and stuff, and it's good to get back to it.
Let me tell you something. People are hungry for it. People are dying to go back and have fun.
Yeah, thank you for putting the link up. But for all the events and stuff, find me on Facebook. Just look for Keith A.
Okay, you got it. You got it. Again,
And
thank you so much.
So much for having. Yeah, thank you.
It's been my pleasure. Take care.
Yeah, it's been fun. Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow. What great stories. Let me tell you something. I wasn't kidding. He should write another book. He says, yeah. I go, you know what? He's probably, just in this little time that we talked, he had some great stories. Can you imagine if he actually sat there and wrote another book? Because I'm sure there's stuff like, that you remember right off the top of your head. Then there's other things that when you put you stop and think about it, you go, man, yeah, I remember now that happened and this happened. And, and by the way, I didn't necessarily mean it as in a, what do you call it? Paranormal stories. They could be, I'm sure he's probably had a lot of adventures and weird stuff that's gone on while, he's been, doing all his, whether he was doing his, music tours or anything having to do with the paranormal. And, there's, let me tell you though, I think the one that really threw me for a loop is the one having to do with the, with a lady that stabbed him. You know what? I'm going to tell you guys something. And a lot of people, you think, wow, you know what? Somebody like this that's capable of doing something as far as stabbing a person in front of everybody, you would think this person would it would be very obvious that there's something wrong with them, you know. And sometimes it's not. And I'll tell you what, there was when I started to do my hypnotherapy work, I had and I've spoken about in other shows, I had like a separate garage area, and I converted to my office, and this is the office where I said, this is when I knew I was going to get a case, because I had one of my windows was frosted glass. And sometimes I would see shadows dart back and forth in an area that I knew there was nothing there. There was only my big trash cans I would leave out there. And the window was high up. So, plus I had no dogs. There's nothing, it didn't face the sidewalk. It couldn't be somebody walking down the sidewalk. But anyway, in that office, I would do my hypnotherapy sessions. And it was a small office, and, I timed it really good with my appointments and everything, and I never really had any difficult experiences with any of my clients. And then when I moved to the farmhouse, I had a room downstairs where I started doing sessions, and it just dawned on me once that, you know what, sometimes you will get people that do have problems, severe problems mentally. They might be getting some type of counseling or care, and maybe their meds aren't working for them, or they've stopped seeing who they're supposed to be seeing, a bunch of things. And I remember one time, I'm going to give you an example, and sometimes it doesn't have to do with, this was a few years back. I had this lady come to see me, and we're talking, and when I had spoken to her originally, she's telling me, oh no, for relaxation. Okay, that's fine. So, but one thing is when you speak to somebody over the phone, another thing is when you're sitting down with them. And we start talking, and I want to say she was like in her late 20s, early 30s. She's telling me she's married, has 3 children. Come to find out, to make a long story short, her husband had sent her to go to get hypnosis to learn how to love him again. In other words, he wasn't there, by the way, thank God, because I was like, huh? He was paying for her to come and get hypnotherapy or hypnosis so that she would feel for him the way that she used to when they had just met. All right. And basically, this was a relationship there of several years. They had been married less than 10 years. Turns out he was one of these guys that was super, super, super possessive, even to the point that one time she told me that, if she would ever, one time he like sat outside she was taking a shower, and he sat outside on the rug of the bathroom. And I'm listening to this, and I'm like, and basically what she wanted out. She wanted out of the relationship. And this guy, I don't want to say he was a great guy, really, he wasn't, but it was just one of those things that's like, I can be a jerk, but you better not ever think about you're leaving, much less with my kids. And she was basically detailing how she was even making a plan to a friend that she had started working someplace. She hadn't even been working, but for her kids, her youngest got old enough where she had this little job, and this other girl that they were going to like leave, and she was going to disappear with the kids. And I'm like, I'm just a hypnotherapist. I thought I was going to hypnotize you to relax, and I told her, look, you tell your husband that I cannot do that. There's no such thing as hypnotizing somebody to recapture the way they felt 10 years before. It was obvious to this guy that she just did not feel for him anymore. There was nobody else. She wasn't cheating on him, nothing like that. He had been such a jerk all these years that, when you wear out, the love is gone. And I said, and guess what? I said, we worked, I relaxed her, I helped her, to go. She was, she had a lot of stuff going on in her head, and I allowed her, I gave her, so she would go into REM sleep and, at least like slow down so you think better and figure out what you're going to do. But I'll be perfectly honest with you. When she called me back for her next appointment, I didn't take it. Why? Because I could see Marlene being caught in the middle of a real ugly scenario, which I didn't want. My point being that sometimes when you work with people, even though there was nothing wrong with her, by the way, she was absolutely normal. There was no mental problems, nothing. She was just caught in a really difficult and impossible situation. And she kind of knew that she was dealing with somebody who did possibly have some problems with his thought process. What he described, and I'm going to go into the thing of the occult and paranormal investigations and things like that. Contrary to when you see on these shows, all these families or wherever it is that they're going, they've been vetted. Okay. Every once in a while, you'll see some of them that they're caught off guard, like, oh, okay, you're really, oh, what's wrong? But by and large, they've kind of vetted this client that where they're going to go investigate. And I think they let it get as dark as just to make it interesting, but not really disturbing, as in somebody like this that stabbed him in the shoulder. And people don't realize as an investigator that you can come across this very, very easily. Okay, why? Mental illness, substance abuse, that mix, and then you throw in there an occult or fear of the occult or the thought or the ghost, and because your reasoning is off. And let me tell you, that happens. And for any would-be ghost hunter / paranormal researchers wannabes, this is something that you got to think of, because you don't have a production team or producer that checks out your potential clients for you before. And by the way, you can talk to somebody on the telephone and it will sound really normal until you get there. I've had a few experiences. I've shown up at houses where they had mannequins dressed up as people in the living room. And I met another investigator, and we were looking at, because we were waiting outside because we waited for the team to get there. And somebody had gone up and said, there's some mannequins, there's dressed mannequins in everything. First of all, everything was in black and white, the entire house. Black and white furniture, so you name it, black, white, black, white. Okay, whatever. Hey, you like that? That has nothing to do with. But then they tell us, hey, there's some mannequins dressed in black and white posed in the living room. And we're like, okay, before we actually got in there, we're thinking, okay, maybe these people, this client is in the fashion industry. Maybe they own a store. We're like, we're trying to second guess, but why would they have them posed in their living room? As in, like, when you walk in and you've got your nice fancy living room area, not the family room, turns out later on, they weren't in the fashion industry. There was no reason for mannequins. And by the way, it wasn't like an avant-garde artistic expression thing. Like, yes, I have my avant-garde creation of my, mannequins dressed in. It was very, very weird. There was I'm not going to go into that case, but that was a weird case. Weird people, it turned out. Very unusual. My point is that sometimes, to be honest with you, stuff like that is like unusual but benign. Nothing happened. There's nothing threatening, nothing like that. But my point being that you could talk to somebody on the phone, pre-screening them for an investigation, and then when you get there, you're like, okay. I have more to worry about than any potential haunting going on in here. I have to worry about you because there's something about you. You have this, what I call this flavor of instability that's very scary. Okay, especially, and did you hear what he said? This lady went off on him when he didn't see Aunt Petunia. He didn't, he said, no, that orb is Aunt Petunia. In other words, as long as you're going along for the ride, everything is great. So what happens when these people, when you go in there and you might not be giving them the feedback that they're expecting. Like, yeah, that's right. Not only do I have a ghost, I have a demon. He's got 7 heads and he's ready to take my soul. And you're like, no, well, yeah. Then you're going to have your own horror story going on for real. But yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I stopped doing my hypnotherapy that way, because I realized that there was, unfortunately, you sometimes got people that I couldn't help them. I wish I could, but what was going on with them was out of my hands. It wasn't. And yeah, that can happen the same way when the paranormal work. And sometimes you don't have to go looking for it. Sometimes it comes to you, just like what happened to Keith. He's standing there and somebody's showing him a picture, and next thing you know, he's got a butcher knife stuck in his shoulder. That's incredible. Okay. But anyway, guys, what great stories. Again, if you want to listen to any of the podcast versions of any of the shows, whether it's Stories of the Supernatural, Nightshade Diary, Supernatural Storytime, all you have to do is go to the website, and I'll point you to a page that I have where you can either click, no commercial interruptions is the point that I'm getting to. You can click, and you can listen to the podcast on your browser, or you can download the MP3 file. And I've got links at MiamiGhostChronicles.com, at MarlenePardo.com. You can go to NightshadeDiary.com or SupernaturalStorytime.com. They've all got the links directly to the podcast versions with no commercial interruptions. Otherwise, I do have links to all the major podcast platforms, whether it's iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, you name it, I'm there. You're going to find me. And of course, through YouTube, we have the video versions, even though I'm on a lot of other platforms like Rumble, you name it, I'm out there. And you're going to find the links there. If you have stories that you want to send me, go to myghostchronicles.com and submit your story. As I mentioned to Keith, after I finish this book, I'm going to put together a book of true ghost stories. Or, by the way, no, scratch that. Not ghost stories. I want stories of unusual events. I don't care what it is. Bigfoot, cryptid, something stared at me through the window, ghost, I got caught in the woods and I had people hunting me, a deliverance version, whatever. I don't care. If it's weird and unusual, I want to hear about it. So, like I said, I'm trying to get local people, but let me tell you something. I'll take a story from anybody. Again, I don't need proof. I don't need a video. I don't need a photograph. It could be a secondhand story, somebody that somebody told you, or something that this story's been going around in your family for years and years, and that's fine too. And again, if you give me permission, I'll use your name, and if not at all. If you want to say, hey, my name is John, not a problem. We'll make you John, Jane, Joan, whatever. I don't care. And more than likely, I'll send you a free copy of the book once it's published, for participating. So if you know of anybody, I'll let them know that I would like to speak to them and listen to what they've got to say, so I can include them in the book. And if you have any suggestions for guests, for topics, let me know as well. It's Marlene at MiamiGhostChronicles.com. You guys are all wonderful, and I truly, truly appreciate that you come back every week and you spend this time with me. And please come back, because I have some fantastic and very interesting guests coming up. Take care. See you next week.